He lived far from town, on a stretch of high desert land where the wind carried dust, memories, and sometimes loneliness. People in the nearby settlement knew him as Daniel Harper, a quiet cowboy with strong shoulders and an even stronger sense of silence. He had turned away many women over the years. Some called him stubborn, others said he was still hurting from the past, and a few whispered that no woman was ever good enough for him. But Daniel didn't explain his reasons. He simply didn't want a woman who came just for a roof, or for his land, or for someone to lift their burdens. He wanted something real, something honest. So, he waited and kept to himself. Life on the ranch kept him busy. He woke before sunrise, fed his horses, checked the fences, rode out to watch the cattle graze, and returned home to a quiet, empty cabin. Many believed he was content this way. But deep inside, a loneliness lived in him like a quiet ember that refused to die. Still, he didn't bend. He didn't open his door to anyone who came asking. Over time, people learned not to try. One warm evening, as Daniel was closing the gate, he saw someone walking toward him from the dusty ridge. The sun was low, turning the sky orange. At first he thought it might be a traveler needing water, but when the figure stepped closer, he realized it was a woman, an Apache widow wearing a woven shawl, carrying a small leather bag, and walking with a tired but steady determination. Daniel straightened and watched her approach. She looked calm but weary, as if she had walked a long distance. Her dark hair was braided, her posture proud. She stopped a few feet from him and met his eyes without fear. "You're the cowboy who refuses every woman," she said softly. Daniel didn't reply at once. He had heard those words before, but never spoken with such direct honesty. "I turn away those who don't truly want a life with me," he said. "Most only want shelter." The widow raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "So, you want a wife? Or you just want to test hearts?" Her words surprised him. She spoke without hesitation, without pretending, without trying to charm him. She stood like someone who had seen enough pain to know that pretending never helped anyone. Daniel asked who she was, and she answered with a voice steady as stone. "My name is Ayanna. I lost my husband 3 winters ago. I lived among my people, but times have changed. There is conflict, and my home is no longer safe. I left before trouble reached my door. I'm not looking for charity. I'm looking for a place to stand again." Daniel studied her carefully. She didn't look desperate. She looked determined. That difference mattered to him. He offered her water, and she accepted. They stood at the well as she drank slowly, her hands slightly trembling from exhaustion. He could see the long journey in her eyes, the weight she carried in her shoulders. Most women who had come to his ranch before arrived smiling too much, flattering too quickly, or pretending to be someone they weren't. Ayanna was different. She didn't beg, she didn't flatter, and she didn't fear being honest. She simply existed, with quiet strength. When she finished drinking, Daniel asked where she planned to go. "I haven't decided," she answered. "I follow the path that feels right in my heart. Today, that path brought me here." Daniel felt something shift inside him, a feeling he wasn't expecting. But he kept his voice steady. "You're welcome to rest here tonight. There's a spare bed in the barn loft. It's dry and safe." Ayanna lifted her chin. "I didn't come to sleep in a barn like a lost traveler. If you only offer shelter, I'll keep walking. I came because I heard you want someone who chooses your life, not your roof." Daniel almost forgot to breathe. The woman was fearless. He didn't want to rush anything, so he simply nodded. Ayanna accepted, but she didn't move immediately. She looked around the land, the horses grazing in the distance, the soft shadows stretching across the ground. "Your home is peaceful," she said quietly. "But peace can be lonely if it's held by only one." Her words dug deeper than she realized. That night, she stayed in the cabin, not the barn. Daniel gave her his own room and slept near the fireplace. He didn't know why he did that. Maybe respect. Maybe instinct. Maybe something growing that he didn't want to name yet. The next morning, he found her already awake, standing outside watching the sunrise. She stood tall, her shawl wrapped around her shoulders, the early light touching her face. She had a calm presence, but something about her also felt like a storm waiting to be understood. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "But sleep doesn't give answers. Talking does." Daniel nodded and made coffee. They sat at the small wooden table where he had eaten alone for years. This time, the room felt different. Warmer. Less empty. Ayanna spoke first. "I know you didn't want company. I know many women tried to come here, but I didn't come with false sweetness. I'm not looking for someone to rescue me. I can take care of myself." "I see that," Daniel replied. "What I want," she continued, "is a place where I'm not judged by my past or my people. A place where my strength is not feared. A place where honesty doesn't scare anyone away." Daniel listened carefully. She wasn't asking for anything unreasonable. She wanted respect, a chance, a life built on truth, not convenience. He asked her why she spoke of wives earlier. Ayanna looked him straight in the eyes. "Because every woman who came here wanted something from you. But you wanted more than someone needing a roof. Ayanna wanted in storing Zon. You wanted someone choosing you. I understand that. My husband chose me that way once. And I want that kind of life again." Daniel felt a tightness in his chest. Not pain, just a feeling he hadn't allowed himself in years. Still, he didn't want to rush. "Living here is not easy," he said. "Work is long. Land is harsh. Nights get lonely. And trust takes time." Ayanna gave a small smile. "Time I can give. Hard work too. But I won't pretend to be someone else to win a place here. If you want truth, I can offer that. If you want only a woman to cook or clean, choose someone else." Her honesty felt like a rare kind of courage. He admired it more than he expected. They spent the day working together. She helped gather firewood, swept the cabin, and fed the horses. She moved with calm confidence, never complaining, never trying to impress him, simply doing what needed to be done. Daniel watched her from a distance several times, noticing how she carried herself with quiet dignity. At sunset, they sat outside as the sky turned deep red. Ayanna looked at the horizon. Then, at Daniel. "You're a good man," she said. "But even good men can be lonely if they close every door." Daniel swallowed hard. "And you? Are you lonely?" "Yes," she answered softly. "But my loneliness doesn't scare me. What scares me is joining a life where I am only a burden. I won't do that. Also, I won't do that." "You wouldn't be," he said. She held his gaze. "Then tell me honestly, do you want a wife? Or do you only worry the world will think you're incomplete without one?" Men. 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 Her question hit him like a hammer. It forced him to look inside himself, to admit how many years he had pushed people away because he feared being hurt again. He realized she wasn't asking to test him. She was asking because she needed truth, not half answers. Daniel had turned away many women before. But for the first time in years, he didn't want to turn away. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood, walked a few steps, and looked at the wide, open land he had protected with so much pride but also so much loneliness. When he returned to her, his voice was low but steady. "I don't want shelter. I want a real life. With someone who chooses me. Not just my roof." Ayanna nodded once, slow and thoughtful. "Then maybe," she said, "we are standing at the same beginning. And for the first time in a very long time, Daniel felt that he wasn't alone anymore. Not in his home, not in his heart, not in the life he was stepping toward. Life changed slowly after that evening, but the change felt real. Daniel had spent years living in silence, keeping doors closed and feelings locked away. Now, each morning when he stepped out of his cabin and saw Ayana standing nearby, feeding the chickens, brushing the horses, or simply watching the sunrise, something inside him felt lighter, steadier, more alive than before. But neither of them rushed into decisions. They simply shared the days, side by side, letting honesty guide them. Ayana was not like any woman Daniel had known. She didn't demand attention or try to convince him of anything. She worked hard without complaint. She spoke only when she had something worth saying. She laughed rarely. But when she did, the sound carried through the ranch like the soft ringing of a bell. Daniel found himself wanting to hear that laugh again and again. One morning, as they repaired a broken fence post together, Ayana noticed Daniel stopping often, watching her hands as she tied the wire, watching her expression as she tested the strength of the post. She finally met his eyes and asked, "Why do you look at me like that?" Daniel cleared his throat. "I'm not looking at you like anything." "Yes, you are," she said simply. "You're trying to understand me. But you don't have to study me. You can ask me anything you want." Her openness caught him off guard. He leaned against the fence, dust on his shirt, and sweat on his brow. "All right," he said gently. "Why did you come alone? Why not stay with your people until you found another home?" Ayana tied the last knot and stepped back. "Because staying there would have made me a shadow of myself. My family loved me, but they didn't understand the restlessness in my heart. I didn't want pity for losing my husband. I didn't want to be treated as someone fragile. I wanted a chance to build something new. And I felt that chance wasn't there anymore." Daniel listened carefully. There was no sadness in her voice, only truth. She didn't cling to the past, but she didn't deny it either. That strength impressed him more than he wanted to admit. Over the next days, the weather grew colder. Nights on the ranch became sharp, and the wind carried a bite that cut through even the thickest coats. Daniel insisted she sleep inside the cabin, and she accepted without argument. Each evening, she made a small meal, and Daniel made sure the fire stayed warm. They talked more slowly, naturally sharing pieces of their past one by one. Daniel told her about the woman he once planned to marry many years ago. Ayana listened quietly, her eyes soft, never judging his story or the hurt that followed. When he finished, she placed a gentle hand on the table. "That pain shaped you," she said, "but it doesn't have to rule you." Those words stayed with him long into the night. Ayana shared her own memories too. Her village, the man she had loved, the peace they once had. But she didn't cling to sorrow. She spoke with gratitude, not grief, showing Daniel that her heart had space for new beginnings, not just memories. Days turned into weeks, and a rhythm formed between them. Ayana helped with ranch chores. Daniel taught her how to ride one of his calmer horses, a chestnut mare named Lark. At first, Ayana sat stiff and cautious, but Daniel's calm instructions helped her relax. Soon she was riding across the open field, with the wind in her hair, her laughter echoing behind her. Daniel found himself smiling every time he heard it. One afternoon, as they rode along the ridge, Ayana slowed her horse and looked across the valley. "Your land is beautiful," she said. "But beauty is not enough. A place must also feel alive." Daniel nodded. "Does it feel alive to you?" She looked at him, the wind lifting her braid slightly. "It's beginning to." Those simple words filled him with warmth. But not everything was peaceful. One day, a group of men rode up from town. They had heard that Daniel finally had company. Some were curious, others jealous, and a few came with unkind intentions. They asked questions that weren't theirs to ask, made comments they shouldn't have made, and behaved as if Ayanna should justify her presence. Daniel felt anger rise inside him. He stepped between the men and Ayanna, his jaw tight. "She's here because she wants to be," he said firmly. "That's all anyone needs to know." Ayanna didn't hide behind him. She stood with calm dignity, meeting the men's eyes without fear. Her strength made Daniel even more protective. When the men finally left, Daniel apologized for their behavior. Ayanna shook her head. "I've faced worse. People fear what they don't understand. But your reaction tells me something." "What does it tell you?" he asked. "That you care more than you admit." Daniel didn't deny it. He only looked away, the truth resting silently between them. That evening, as the fire crackled softly in the cabin, Ayanna sat across from Daniel with her shawl wrapped around her shoulders. She watched him carefully, noticing how he kept glancing her way but never spoke what he felt. "You're thinking too loudly," she said with a small grin. Daniel smiled faintly. "You always seem to know." "Dud. I know because I've spent many days watching you. You're a man who holds everything inside. But even mountains shift over time." "One." Daniel took a breath. "Ayanna, do you feel this is a place you could stay? Not just for shelter, but for life?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked around the cabin. The warm fire, the wooden walls, the small table they ate at every night. Then, she looked at Daniel. "I can stay," she said softly. "But only if I am truly wanted. Not as someone filling a space. Not as someone replacing a memory. I won't stay if your heart isn't open." Daniel stepped closer, his voice low and honest. "My heart has been shut for a long time. But you opened it without trying. And yes, I want you here." Ayanna's eyes warmed with something gentle and deep. "Then, this place becomes my home." From that day forward, their bond grew naturally. They didn't rush to call each other husband and wife. Instead, they built trust through small moments, shared meals, long rides, quiet conversations, and steady work. One evening, after a long, peaceful day, they stood on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one. The desert night was calm, the sky endless above them. Ayanna stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. "You once asked what I wanted," she said. "Now I can answer clearly. I want a life where strength is shared, not tested. I want companionship, not ownership. And I want a home where truth matters more than anything else." Daniel looked at her with warmth in his chest. "Then that's the life we'll build." Ayanna touched his arm lightly. "And you?" Daniel looked at her, truly looked, and said, "A wife who chooses me. A partner who stands with me. A heart that walks beside mine. And I think I've already found her." Ayanna's breath caught, not from surprise, but from a quiet understanding. She placed her hand in his, letting silence speak its own truth. In that moment, nothing rushed, nothing forced, nothing uncertain. Just two people who had walked long roads, carried heavy memories, and still chose each other freely. Daniel Harper, the cowboy who once turned away every woman, finally welcomed one into his life. Not because he needed shelter or company, but because he found someone whose strength matched his own. And Ayanna, the Apache widow who had left everything behind, discovered a new beginning with a man who valued honesty above all. Together, they built a life rooted in trust, steady, gentle, and real. A life where both their hearts finally found a place to rest.